Best of r/Tales from Retail episode 80. Subscribe for edit videos daily. I'm posting this on mobile, so sorry about any formatting problems and all of that. This has happened to me numerous times throughout my retail career, but it happened again today to a colleague while I was standing nearby the till. Customer tries to pay for something that we'll say is £10 with a gift card that is not one of our company's own gift cards, but is instead one purchase from somewhere else and is accepted in a wide variety of stores. To process a purchase with one of these cards, the card has to either have the exact or an exceeding balance on it, so in this case it would have to be £10 or more, or we, the cashiers, have to type in the amount of money we are taking off the total with a gift card if the whole transaction cannot be covered by it. My colleague swipes the card through and it comes back saying declined, meaning that the card does not have sufficient funds to cover the whole transaction. Oh, I'm sorry, it's saying the card is declined, so there's not enough to cover the £10 on there. Do you know how much money is on the card? Customer: no, it was a gift. Can't you just tell me how much is on there on the till? Colleague: I'm afraid I can't do that as it isn't one of our company gift cards. There isn't a function on the till to tell me. Customer: well, can't you just take whatever's on the card off? Colleague: I have to type in the amount that I'm taking off with a card. I can just keep trying different amounts until we get the right one. Customer sighs angrily: no, it's just a waste of time. It's ridiculous that you can't just take the money off. The customer then paid for the transaction using a different method of payment and walked off muttering to her husband, while yes, it would make it easier if tills could read how much is on these cards, that would also have to mean that every branch of stores that accept these cards across the country would have to have the technology to do so. But the cards also have numbers on the back that you can call to find out the balance. But yet again, it's always the cashiers who get the stick for it because a system doesn't work a certain way and we're supposed to be mind readers, or in this case, human card readers. Thank you. Next. Back in 1989, I had a customer come in and ask to buy 20 Amigas for their classroom. I made a point of letting them know that most schools use Apples and that none of the software or hardware they have will work with Amigas. They said their secretary told them it doesn't, to just buy them because they are less expensive than the iGs. I must have told them the truth a dozen times through the process and also showed them some magazine that explained this. I also informed him that if he were to bring them back for refund or credit, there would be a 20% restocking fee and all the original packaging and paperwork is required. Also, they can't be registered for warranty at all. I also included on the receipt the above info. Multi-party receipt that the customer signed. So an hour later, off he goes with 20 units. No monitors, no printers, no software. Well, next weekend guess who shows up? Claimed I told him they would work with the Apple software their school uses. Then got loud and pissy when I told him because he didn't keep the original packaging/paperwork that I couldn't give him any refund. Manager involved pointed out the receipt statement and actually backed me up. Guy got even more mad and stormed off saying he was going to the police and sue me and the company. He left the computers. And he did go to the police and he did sue me and the company. Bailiff called and asked for our statement and laughed when we told him. Also told us that if the guy doesn't reclaim his abandoned equipment within 30 days of when he left it, we could dispose of it. The courts told him that too. After calling the school to fill them in, they told us they don't want the equipment because it doesn't work with their software, etc. And that we shouldn't have told him it would. We faxed them a copy of the receipt showing we told him it wouldn't, and the principal said he didn't see the receipt. Just what the guy said. Turns out the guy paid for all of it out of his pocket and expected the school to reimburse him. But when nothing worked, they said they wouldn't. To take things back and get what will, and they'll reimburse him for that. This explained why he actually sued me and the company. Well, another call back to the courts to add that info and they rejected the lawsuits and sent a cop to his home to stop pursuing the matter or they would charge him with harassment, which would get him fired from teaching. All that took a good 50 days, by which time we had disposed of the computers. He came in wanting all of them so he could resell them as used. We showed him the paperwork from the courts where they told him and as he had 30 days to claim his abandoned computers or we could dispose of them, and that we did. I never saw that asshole again till 10 years later when I was working for a large corp in IT. He was working in one of the offices in purchasing. He avoided me like the plague. I never said a word about the whole event till he left for another company. Turned out he had lost thousands of dollars worth of computer accessories, but they couldn't prove he actually stole it. Thank you. Next. About 15 years ago, I was the acting manager for a mobile phone shop in the UK. It was a third-party retailer that sold all networks, but has since been bought out and no longer exists. This girl, around 12-14, she was the type overweight that made guessing age difficult, not fat shaming. Came in and asked about a cheap prepaid phone that we stocked. Can't remember which one, but it was the cheapest one we had, like £30. We had some in stock, so I started going through its details when she said she needed it on the O2 network. We only stocked that particular phone on T-Mobile, so I told her no and started suggesting some O2 phones we had that were almost as cheap. The following is not verbatim, but as close as I can remember. Cast, D dumb kid, M-Oy, D, but this phone is dual band. M, yes, D, so that means it can take 2 SIM cards. M, no, that means it uses 2 frequency bands. All phones sold in Europe, most of Africa and Asia are at least dual band. Prepaid phones are heavily discounted by the networks, so they're locked to only working with their own SIMs. D, no, my friend said it means it can take 2 cards. M, sorry, but that's not what it means. If you put your O2 SIM in that, it won't work. You can get it unlocked, but it voids the warranty, and usually causes problems, so I don't recommend it. D, but my friend said it will work. M, is this a school friend? D, yes. M, okay, well I work in a phone shop. I think it's safe to say I know more about phones than your friend does. I promise you, if you put a non-T-Mobile SIM card in that phone, it will not work. I tell her that she could port a number across, or get the cheapest O2 prepaid one we had for about £50. D, okay, don't worry about it then. She turns and leaves and I never see her again. Sadly, no. About an hour later, she comes back and says she wants to purchase that T-Mobile phone. M, okay, so you know this won't work on O2? D, yeah, sure. M, okay, just so you know, all T-Mobile products are not included in our 14 change of mind policy. D, yeah, fine. M, so, once you've bought it, there's no refund. D, yeah, fine. M, okay then. I sell the phone, and then she leaves forever? Wouldn't be interesting if she did, would it? Another hour goes by and she comes back. D, there's something wrong with my phone, it's not working. M, oh, really? I usually ask for symptoms, etc. At that point, but I already knew what the issue was. Have you guessed what it is? I took the back and battery off and lo and behold, nestled in the SIM card slot was an old, battered O2 SIM card. M, well, there's your problem. You put your old SIM card in there, not the T-Mobile one that came with it. I swapped the cards over, reassembled it, and showed her it working. D, but I don't want it on T-Mobile. M, it only comes on T-Mobile. I did tell you this earlier. D, UHH, fine. I'll have my money back then. M, no you won't. D, what? M, I did tell you that there's no change of mind on this before I sold it to you. D, but I don't want it. M, sorry, can't help you. D, is there a manager I can talk to? M, I am the manager. You can either call T-Mobile and port your number, or get it unlocked. But again, I don't recommend that. D, but, fine. Grabs her stuff and leaves for the last time. Now, I could have refunded this for her, using the manager's override, as the post typically wouldn't give a refund option for T-Mobile, but this got flagged to the area manager and I'd have to justify it later. Frankly, I didn't want to, and I felt like I'd given her more than enough warning. Thank you. Next. I sold a customer a TV that lasted 3 years and broke down about 3-4 months out of warranty. They wasn't happy with the reply they got from the manufacturer, saying they would have to pay to get it fixed, so they came to me. So I spoke with the manufacturer sales rep and he said he would get back to me. Got back to me a few days later saying they would cover the labor, but they had to pay for the parts and they had to take the TV to the repairer. Spoke to the customer and she said, "I'm not driving across town to get it fixed. Can't they come to my house to fix it?" I said, "No, that's the best deal you will get." Didn't hear anything for a few days. Then I saw a post on Facebook complaining no one would fix her TV and did anyone know who could fix it for cheap. The kicker in this, it was my sister. Thank you. Next. This happened 2 weeks or so ago. As usual, here's my quick rundown. I work at an antique store and we're in the process of closing. I've had a lot of people try to come in before or after we're closed, to which I tell them we're closed and they usually apologize and leave. However, that didn't happen with this couple. I arrive at work about 20 minutes before the shop opens to the public every day. I'm supposed to clean, set up the till, and organize anything in the shop before customers arrive. Well, I arrived to work early one morning and I unlock the front door and, as I'm walking inside, this woman and her husband follow me in. I stop at the counter and turn around to face them. The lights are off. My closed sign is still up. I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna get robbed, but nope. The wife starts looking around the shop. Her husband, not very kindly, addresses me by saying, "Your closed sign is in the window. Do you want me to flip it to open?" I say, "Number. We aren't open." And his wife says, "Oh, you don't mind if we look around though?" It wasn't a question. She just made a statement. I was angry, but I just said, "I guess not," hoping they'd just leave in a few minutes. I set up shop and turn on the lights and wait. They look around for 45 minutes until the wife brings me an item that isn't one of our antiques, but just an item we sell for tourists. She puts it down on the counter and says, "What's wrong with this?" Confused, I said, "What do you mean?" She makes a face at me and repeats, "What's wrong with it? It's $10. Now, I kind of understand what she means. We're selling antiques and this item is significantly cheaper than anything else we have. I explained that we have items, like the one she brought to me, that are just cheaper items for people who don't want to invest in an antique. There's nothing wrong with it. It's brand new, even. She decides that's not good enough for her and picks the item apart. Like, oh, it has a scuff here or it looks dirty here and it looks a little sad. I finally say, "You don't have to buy it if you don't like it." She says, "Oh, no, she'll buy it since it's only $10, and I heave a sigh of relief once she finally leaves with her item. Thank you. Next. I work part-time at a retail store, and the people that come in and out are usually pretty nice, as long as there isn't too much trouble with their orders. I think it's maybe towards the middle of the day. It had been pretty dead until an older guy walked in. I was working second register, so usually they'd head straight to first if empty, but this guy was just grabbing one thing, and was already on my side, so I was like simple enough and just went ahead and said I could get him right here. I ring him up, and he puts his card in. Chip read failed. Common error. No biggie. We try again. Chip read failed. As of now, let it be known that our registers were recently sent to new, bright shiny screens, fast pace, and any card issues like this end up being simple mistakes, like just being flipped the wrong way, or swiped instead of inserting the chip. There are times it is the card reader, and it needs to be rebooted, but we can just take the card over to the screen side and insert it there ourselves, and boom, all is good. If the card is functional itself, of course. The only real annoying thing is where we have to make sure the card is entered after the total pops up on this screen that's towards them. We have to say it to every customer. Sorta a damned if you do damned if you don't situation. Anyway, I was already glancing over when it had flashed this to see if he had it in right, and he did. So my next step was just trying again. Tried about 2 more times. Guy is beginning to get irritated and I could hear him muttering something like all these registers around here or something. He was not waiting for the total despite me saying it, so he'd have to pull out and redo it angrily, which I'm sure didn't help the case. I said I could try it over here, and he handed it to me and I popped it in. In the process I was mentally like, yeah, it's probably that card reader, I'll reboot it blah blah blah. Immediately told me to pull it out. Unable to read card. At that point I was kinda stunned because that usually works. I've had instances with cards not wanting to read, but it's usually resolved with something simple like giving it a quick wipe or this, but nothing was working for this card. And I knew the screen card reader wasn't messing up because I had just previously used it. I honestly tried everything I could in that moment, but the other register was occupied with a few, so I couldn't transfer it over there. Thank you. Next. This is probably going to be long. Legend. AC. Angry customer. NC. Nice customer. This happened over the summer of 2018 when I worked as a cashier at a large home improvement company. They had really good benefits and bonuses, which is why I stayed for almost a full year. I enjoyed most of the customers, but this story is one of many as to why I quit and left retail altogether. A bit of backstory. My store's cashier setup used to be a row of tills, and then in the self-checkouts, there was also a till. So pretty much, the person who was stuck at this till would ring customers up and have to maintain the self-checkouts. This caused a lot of stress, as honestly, our self-checkout sucked and broke down constantly, so when we were busy it was a nightmare. To alleviate this problem, they took out the till and left the self-checkouts. We still rang people through the self-checkouts, using our scanners and bagging their items, whenever possible. I still don't think they anticipated the backlash this caused, and whatever your opinion is on self-checkout, the behavior that followed was not okay. For the first several months after this change, the amount of people that swore at us, spat at us and had us call managers so they could yell at them was honestly mind-blowing to me, especially since all they had to do was use the pin pad, since we would typically still scan and bag their items for them to provide excellent customer service. They also would now always keep another till open. Before, you would often be working alone with a till and all four SCOs. Then when they switched it over, they decided to keep an extra till open just for customers who preferred tills. Now onto the main story. This happened after things had begun settling down with the self-checkouts. There had been no till for several months now and most people knew. We still scanned in larger purchases for customers, but overall, everyone scanned their own items. This gentleman, around 50, walks up to my counter and places the items down on it. I smile and greet him and inform him that I'm no longer a till, but I'd be happy to assist him and ring him through the self-checkouts. AC grumbles at me, sure, whatever. I bring his items to the self-checkout and I begin scanning all his items, making small talk. We get to the end of the purchase and all he has left to do is insert his card into the chip reader. I had completed everything for him up until that point and he lost it on me, saying he didn't want to use the stupid self-checkout. It's too complicated. Take me to a till. I calmly explained to him that all he needed to do was present his card and follow the instructions on the pin pad and that all the pin pads for the SCOs and the tills were the exact same. I also told him that there was a till right beside me he could go to if he was more comfortable with that. I could see him getting more aggravated, but the other SCOs needed my attention so I left him to decide if he wanted to pay or wait in line for a till. When I came back to him, he had his arms crossed and a smirk on his face. He told me gleefully I'm not paying. What? His items totaled between $100 to $200. I explained to him that I couldn't do that for free but I could offer a discount for his troubles. We were allowed to offer discounts of up to $50. Something about empowering ourselves. He repeated that he wasn't paying and I couldn't make him. I asked him again to pay or I would need to cancel his order as other people were waiting to use the self-checkouts. He told me to cancel his order. So that's what I did. I hit cancel. It flashed on his screen and he grabbed his items off the SCO bench and threw them at me, storming out. The NC behind him helped me pick everything up, muttering about what a baby the AC was. And since NC was so nice, I gave him a discount instead. I went and talked to my manager afterwards about what happened, but they had gotten so used to this behavior, they just shrugged it off. I quit not too long after that as I had a job offer come through that was in the field I wanted to be in. TLDR. Old man is displeased that I'm not a till, just a self-checkout but doesn't want to go to the till beside me. I ring him through the self-checkout, all he has to do is pay. Instead of paying, he tells me to cancel his order and when I do, he throws his items at me.